I think the main thing that I've gained through my interaction with these mentors, these scholars, these teachers, has been kind of the worldview that that people matter. And I think within the business world, that's a very important notion that sometimes gets lost. And I think that's why I gravitate towards human resource management, towards organizational behavior, because these disciplines within the business realm are all about valuing people and finding ways to maximize their human potential. And if we look at employees, leaders within an organization from that frame and perspective, it's very different than looking at employees as tools, as peons, people to carry out orders. And I think that's something that I've gained through the interactions with these other people, that first and foremost, people always matter. And when you value people, and when organizations value people, they will be successful organizations. When they don't value people, when they manipulate, when they exploit, they may have success in the short term, but they will not have sustainable long-term success in a very hyper-competitive global marketplace where they need to be highly adaptive and innovative, and they simply can't do that if they don't tap into the potential of their employees and the people that are the most valuable asset within the organization. Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Obviously, companies can look at labor laws. Say you look at an American company. There are labor laws, minimum wage laws, safety, OSHA, all sorts of things that will limit, quote unquote, limit what they can do, right? Mm-hmm. and impact their labor costs. And so many organizations have offshored or outsourced to other countries, many to third world countries, where I think what you're getting at is using exploitative labor in third world countries because they can't do it here, right? Again, that's a reality that happens. I think the best organizations don't do that. I think the best long-term sustainable organizations understand that is a failed long-term strategy. Again, it might be great for quarterly reports and quarterly earnings, or the to the minute stock prices based on labor costs. But when you're looking at the best organizations that have been the best over a long term, they tend to be those organizations that value their people. And you can still go into a less developed nation, set up shop, and give those citizens an opportunity to have employment and have jobs, and do it in a meaningful way, and still a way that's cheaper than here, but in a way that still not doesn't exploit them. And so I think many organizations do that, and that's an example of how they're kind of, I suppose, getting the best of both worlds in that sense. And that's the goal, that they won't just willy-nilly say, oh, our quarterly report's going to really stink, we better cut labor costs and downsize drastically offshore processes, and just do that willy-nilly. That they'll truly look at all of the stakeholders involved, both the intended and unintended consequences of their actions. And that's something I hope that I can at least get students starting to think about. Obviously, one class here, one class there isn't enough to change their whole way of thinking, but if I can have some amount of impact on them to help them to start to think about things in that manner, a very nuanced, critical thinking, ethical perspective on the world, then when they find themselves in those positions, they will be able to realize that it's not just the employees in their organization that matter, but it's the consumers that matter. It's the future labor resources in other countries that they might tap into that matter, and everything that they do need to reflect that. And again, there are many organizations that do that very well. There are many organizations that do that very, very poorly, and those are the organizations that typically get spotlighted in the news. Student engagement in the classroom is really one of my primary goals, but it doesn't have to end in the classroom, and that's why I have them do projects with the community. I do lots of service learning courses. I also work with a lot of students on research projects outside of class. That's one thing that I think is very valuable to them, particularly students who plan on pursuing grad school in the future, that they have some experience with research, conducting research, presenting at conferences, writing papers, that kind of stuff will be invaluable to them. And I'm limited in my time and the amount of time I can devote to that, but I try to, at any given time, have at least a handful of students that I'm working with outside of the classroom in that regard. I'm also faculty advisor for several clubs, such as Students in Free Enterprise, Society for Human Resource Management, and others that I've been an advisor for in the past. Students in Free Enterprise, that is a club that's all about utilizing business practices and principles, concepts of free market economics, but using them in an empowering way to benefit people in the community. So we do community outreach projects where we teach people financial literacy. We teach them how to be self-reliant. We teach them job skills. We give them the opportunity to, we hear a lot about, people who are struggling, that they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. We try to give them the bootstraps so they can pull themselves up, because a lot of times they don't have them.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of these types of projects, both locally and internationally, and giving students the opportunity to engage with a population in need that maybe they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to engage with, which allows them to learn about themselves and to learn and broaden their worldview, but also give them important project management experience and some of those other types of skill sets that will be invaluable to them moving forward. And then there's just lots of other co-curricular, extracurricular types of events that happen on and off of campus that I try to make sure that students are aware of, some of which I'm directly involved with, some I'm not, but I just want them to know about so that they can engage in those opportunities. And I try at least to make that an emphasis so that students understand it's more than showing up to class. The university experience is just a step in a lifelong learning experience that hopefully they'll have. And again, it's more than just showing up to class, but it's about being engaged with all these different aspects within their community.